So here are some, what you might call strategies, rules of thumb. Here are a few rules of thumb for great design. So remember I said keep it simple? Simplicity is right at the top of the list. Simplicity is so important. And if you'll just limit yourself to, one font and one size and one alignment and not get all fancy, you'll probably make something that is better than what most people are making, that's distracting and hard to deal with. So one is simplicity. Another is repetition. Once you've figured something out that works, repeat it over and over. It adds coherence, ties everything together. Next, contrast. This is juxtaposing things against each other. You notice the way the big, bold headline plays nicely against the small text? Something design-wise that unconsciously just looks good. It's juxtaposed. There's a contrast going in there. Number 4, alignment. Alignment. The good examples of design, you'll notice, if you look closely, have clear alignments. They're invisible lines that everything sticks to. And the next piece that I want to talk about is the rule of thirds. Did you notice that in the Rolls-Royce ad, in that example I just showed, there were 3 columns? There's something pleasing about thirds. Would you like me to give you a tip that will allow you to make all of the snapshots you take about 1,000 times as professional in their appearance? Okay. So here's a trick that I use when I take pictures. I'm kind of an amateur photographer. An amateur actually I think means that you make money doing it. I'm not that good. I'm like a novice photographer. But I'm interested in this stuff. I study this stuff. All these principles tend to apply in different parts of life. If you take a snapshot of someone, what is the kind of natural way to go about it? What does your gut tell you to do? Where do you line them up in the viewfinder? Dead center. Right? You're just focused on them. Got to make sure I get them all the way in there. Right? Now, if you look at a professional photograph, is the subject typically in the dead center of the picture? No, they're usually somewhere else. There's something's going on, and yet it works. And most of us think, well, if I put you over on the side of the picture, you're going to hate that. You're going to be like, oh, it was off center, and so I'm not even going to go there. Take the viewfinder in your mind and break it up into 3 columns. Okay, so you've got the center column, and then you've got one on each side, and you've got little lines, 2 vertical lines here in your imagination on the vertical. And then do the same thing horizontally. So make 3 horizontal sections. Yeah, strips. I'm making this up as I go in case you didn't notice. So you're making a tic-tac-toe board, exactly, in thirds. But because the aspect ratio is usually like a 4:3, it's going to be off a little bit. Well, where those lines intersect, there are 4 points inside the viewfinder. Does that make sense? There are 4 points. Each of them is following a rule of thirds. It's a third of the way over to one side and a third of the way to the top or bottom. Those 4 points in there, those are the money points. That's where the good stuff is. So if you're taking a picture of someone, instead of putting their head right in the middle of the frame, put their head right in the middle of one of those points, and then snap the picture, and then look at it. And what you'll find is your pictures just start looking way better. They look fantastic. And if you're taking a picture of a couple, kind of put them in there and get the centerpiece of their, kind of the balance of where their heads are, get that in one of those rule of thirds places and see what happens. Start using thirds. Your pictures will become much better. People will start saying, "What? Wow, are you a professional photographer?" Fascinating. No, you just have this little imaginary grid in your mind, and you know that thirds is pleasing in some way. There are many others, but thirds is good. It's a great one to start with. So use the rule of thirds. Pick a couple of alignments and stick to them. If you've got 3, perfect. Thirds, aligning on the thirds, great. You'll notice a lot of these layouts that I'm showing you do, and they have a vibe, something about them. Balance is next. Balance. Now I remember 20 years ago, I took a design class in college, and I got something useful from it that I've never forgotten. I've learned more about it now. It didn't make sense when I actually first heard it, but when things don't make sense to me, but I see that a lot of people can see something I can't, they stick, and they kind of nag me until I go, oh. Well, what we did was we took a piece of construction paper, and I think we took a black piece of paper, and we had these white circles. As I recall, we had like 7 or 9 of them. And the teacher said, arrange the circles on the piece of black construction paper in a way that achieves balance. And so it was an odd number of pieces of paper, so I arranged it in a way that was still very symmetrical, very structured, ordered. And then at the end, everyone shared put them up on the wall, and we looked, and I was like, what balance? What are you guys talking about? Some people made these curved shapes that came up over here and then had a lot of them over here in a corner, and these angular things and these weird patterns. And I remember how a lot of the folks were saying, wow, the ones that looked the weirdest and most unbalanced to me were the ones that people were ooh and ahhing over. Like, okay, something's going on here. So balance can be achieved in a lot of different ways, but you have to get out of just trying to use like rigid mathematical thinking to achieve balance. In the Rolls-Royce ad, as an example, the top third was that big, heavy, dark picture, and the bottom 2/3 was text and a lot of white. So it kind of takes that 2/3, twice as much space, that has that kind of gray, busy tone to balance out the third that's got that heavy, dark picture. But there's something about that kind of works. The next one that I showed you with the picture and then the 3 columns with the headline underneath, there's something beautiful and balanced about that. There's something really ingenious about that design, because up here in the corner you've got this picture, and then you've got this headline underneath it, and there's a lot of weight over there. But then over here around this side and on the column, you've got all the text, and it somehow kind of balances it out in a way. Balance is one of those things that is abstract. You get a feel for it, and then you know it when you see it. And the more you look for it, the more you start to see it, and you start to realize, oh no, I'm putting all the heavy elements over here, and the thing looks lopsided, and it's weird. Or I don't have anything to balance out this big block of thing over here, and so it just is standing there by itself. I need to have something over here to balance it out. That's as abstract and weird as I'm going to get. But look for balance, and we'll talk more about it in some of the images that I'm going to show you, so that you get a little bit more of an idea. And then finally, combining a lot of these ideas, we get themes. Themes are a group of elements that are all used together in a certain way, and that you can keep having come up over and over and over. In symphonies, there are themes, and they pop up over and over and over throughout the entire symphony. Songs use themes. Architecture uses themes. Combination of elements that you use in different places and you can express in different ways. Here's a design from Apple. Study everything Apple does when it comes to design. Spend time on their website looking at what they're up to lately. They're always at the next level. They have some of the best designers in the world. Now, when you look at this, does this look like something that's trying to take something from you, that's trying to get your money or sell you something? Or does this look like something that's inviting and interesting and it's going to give you information? How does it feel? Feels interesting, right? You're just drawn into it. I want to know more about what's going on there, and I don't even know why. Would you describe this design as being, let's just say, your gut? And I know that we're not professional designers here, but would you describe this design as being kind of amateurish and ugly? Would you describe this design as being average? Would you describe this design as being sophisticated and highly evolved? Sophisticated, highly evolved on this spectrum? Well, now why is that? It's basically black and white text. They're probably using one font in two sizes, with one of them being bold. I mean, there's really nothing that is that amazing about this design. Everything's aligned left over here, and then there's one other column over here where everything's aligned hard left. They dropped a couple of pictures in here and there. This didn't require someone to sit around and pull out a giant blueprint machine and, like they were building the Empire State Building, I've got to figure out how it's all going to be laid out, and I have to spend 20 years on it. You could replicate this thing in a minute. How is it that this seems sophisticated, whereas many of the designs we've looked at today that are far more complex than this, that people spent more time on and put all these elements in, look amateurish and weak, when this, with just a couple of simple font sizes, might even be the same font, it has this air of sophistication. Why? Do you see simplicity? Do you see repetition? Do you see contrast? Do you see alignment? Do you see thirds? Do you see balance? You getting a feel for balance yet? Do you see balance? Do you see themes? You see the themes? A theme might be bold headline, no line space, well, single line space, paragraph of text underneath it, space. Then it's repeated again. Then it's repeated again. It's a little theme. It's like a little musical element. It's like a little phrase, repeated. You see it all? It's all right there. Now, why is it that when we go to Apple's website and we're looking it over and we're thinking about it, we don't see any of this and think, I wonder if I should do that in my marketing? Because we can't see the design. The design is invisible. We're so fascinated with what they're telling us that we can't see the vehicle that's delivering it to us. So the great design is invisible, but it makes us go, ooh, ah.